Today we're going to be painting a 5-layer stencil of the legendary Scarface, and I'll show you a few tips along the way. Of course, if you'd like to know which colors I use for each of the layers, you can see them up in the top left so you can make a note of them. And if you also want a copy of the stencil along with all of my others, you can either grab a copy from the members only section or from my Etsy page, because there's nothing I'd love to see more than you guys painting a copy for yourself. So with my base layer here, I'm just using straight black. Because this image was so dark, I decided that would be the easiest to paint first. And the way I set up most of my stencils is I always work from darkest to lightest, unless the image only has a little bit of black in it. Then I might even do the black last so it has a little bit more crispness to it. But I'll usually paint from darkest to lightest, because once you paint the lighter tones on top of the darker ones, they always tend to have a little bit more pop. And I just like the way it looks. You know, it works really well for me. So this is our second layer done. And let's take a quick look. And that looks pretty awesome. Off to our third layer. And these layers were actually cut on a laser cutter. You might remember from my earlier videos, I did start off with a Cricut machine just because they were cheaper and more accessible. The difference between a laser and a Cricut is not that big, except for the fact that a laser you can get a little bit more detail, and because you're not actually trying to peel it off a sticky mat, it just makes it a little bit easier to get smaller details. I find they don't rip off on the mats. But I still do try and design most of my stencils to be cut on either a laser or a Cricut machine, so they should work on both. And here you can see me using hairdryer just to dry up the paints so I can get on to the next layer super quick. And here we are onto the fourth color. It's nothing more satisfying than the painting process of stencils. I always enjoy this part way more than making the stencils. It's just so satisfying. Another tip I can give you guys is to hold your stencils down if you want to get sharper edges with something like a little stick or some weights. And also paint in really light layers. I find if you just do that and you get a little bit of texture in your paint, like you can see here in the cheek area, it just makes it look just a little bit more realistic and interesting, I find. Otherwise, if you paint it perfectly with heavy coats, I find that sometimes it can look a bit too cartoony. Alright, up to the fifth color already. Super quick on this one. Super light coats once again. Holding down a stencil so I can get some nice crisp edges. Pulling this one off, and man, that's looking so good already. I really like the way this stencil came out. It was such a good image to work from, and I could just get heaps of detail in it. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking now and let you guys enjoy the rest of the video while I paint in the background on this awesome little stencil piece. Enjoy!